Welcome to series two.
Of Rethinking the Mundane, where a industrial designer and a creative technologist talk about everyday objects, question their purpose, imagines new futures, or just we just decide to leave it alone.
Not as good as it is. Today we're going to talk about chairs. The humble chair that we're sitting on right now.
The great chair, the wonderful chair.
This is a topic you picked, Lex. But do you want me to do the usual history? Because I don't think you've done your research. Okay.
I'm sorry, folks. I'm getting back into the flow.
I don't have the origin story of the chair, bearing in mind that people were probably sitting on a log or sitting on a bit of ground, for years.
But when you said the chair is probably one of the most mundane objects, like throughout collective history. So even if we're not talking about in this context, are we talking about just a chair? Are we talking about seats? Are we talking about because you also have to look at it from that perspective as well, right? Like because when you were talking about chair and you were talking about history, I was even thinking of like the Romans. You know, what did they call them? The thing that they got in Rome,
In the what?
the cycling where people came to compete and more.
Oh, what, like in a stadium?
Yeah, but it wasn't a stadium.
Like an amphitheatre.
That's it. And they were seated. So seating, we do have a relationship with. That's what I'm saying. Is it about the chair? Was about our relationship with seating? What should we?
I think we should talk about a purpose-built object designed to raise your bum off the floor.
Okay.
And the thing, so what's quite interesting is there is still a culture in the world where they don't regularly sit on chair. Their chairs don't have chairs in the house, and that is in Japan. And this could either have been this, the historically, culturally, they've always sat on the floor, whether that's to eat, to work, to have a meeting, to socialize, and they sat on like a tatami mat, so that it's comfortable, sat in that kind of cross-legged or style position. And but well, I guess everywhere else in the world, we do sit on a chair, and historically, that's come about from two reasons, as far as I know from my research. Firstly, in the West, we have typically kind of historically like a mud floor, maybe covered in rushes, but it might be water might come in from it raining, or you bring in mud kind of on your shoes, and so the idea of sitting on the floor was not ideal because it was dirty. In more eastern countries, there was areas where it was dry enough that you could sit on the floor because you could keep the floor clean and it wasn't wet outside and dirty outside, or you would have areas where maybe it flooded, and so you'd have raised property, in which case again you would traditionally take your shoes off and you'd keep that area clean so you could sit on the floor. So you were raising yourself up because the floor was dirty. The other end of that, the other kind of reason for having a chair is that the person sat on the chair when everyone else was on the floor gave a difference in hierarchy. So a ruler or a leader might want to put themselves in that position to have kind of demand authority. Obviously now we don't use a chair for either of those things. Most of our homes are more than clean enough for us to sit on the floor.
I think we still use chairs for hierarchy. It's just more the chair itself becomes an ornament. It's like its own distinctive.
I mean, I guess if you look at the coronation,
for example, them chairs there
have a status. Everyone else sat on a bench and they're sat in that grand throne.
Throne, the real gold, and other stuff that But I guess, would you say how has chairs evolved in terms of design and I guess when maybe chairs were originally created, comfort was, I don't know, obviously it's quite hard because we don't maybe have that historical context, but would you say comfort and aesthetic was a big thing at the time, or was it like creating things that are just like for pure utility and function?
The thing that's definitely changed over time is the length of time we spend sat down.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you look at chairs and thrones and of old, and you look at it and think that's not going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
But people weren't sat in them for a really long time, so it could be about status and the intricacies of the woodwork or gold inlay, or like quite ornate and craft based.
Yeah.
And then but they may have only been used for an hour. Now we're sat in a chair. I mean, how long on average do you think in a day you sit in a chair?
Not good on like 12.
12 hours?
That sounds crazy, but like if you're at home, you can be. Yeah.
Almost continuously, right?
Yeah, continuously. Yeah. Could be set.
And like, so we've had to prioritize ergonomics. We've had to prioritize chairs that are more comfortable for us, because the human body's not designed to be sat down for that long. We're a creature like any others. You wouldn't see a dog or a monkey like sat completely in the same position for crazy lengths of time. They're getting up, wandering around, moving around, and yet we don't do that because we get kind of focused. We're very sort of task kind of orientated in our lives now. So we've had to move towards these like more ergonomic chairs, or those Herman Miller and
expensive
expensive chairs to get that level of comfort and take the weight off certain parts of our body.
Yeah.
But it means that we've become a lot more limited, I guess, in how a chair needs, or our expectations of a chair, I guess, are.
And it's like, I guess for me, chairs are an interesting one. Most chairs are never made for me. I'm never the default for chairs. So I don't actually find 9 out of 10 do I rarely find, like, I rarely find comfortable chairs. Chairs that I actually feel like, oh, this is a really comfortable chair. I like sitting in it. It's like I'm always having to just exist with the chair rather than like, here is a chair that's like, made for me. And then obviously the designs of chairs have evolved in different ways. You have chair, you can have a bean bag, you can have, you name it, different types that, try to find this balance of comfort and the aesthetic. But for me, I'm just like, yeah. So chairs that's why I picked it, because it's like chairs is an interesting one, because they're all around us. They're so important to our now human existence. Like, and but like you mentioned, human beings should not be spending so much time sitting on chairs. But our relationship with work, the computer, and there's especially for those who work very computer-based jobs, our relationship with work has now shaped our relationship with the chair in a way. And so can the chair be challenged? I guess, for example, you use a standing desk a lot, and talk to me about that, because I
broke away from the chair. Yeah, I'm generally quite like a fidgety person. I struggle, anyone watching this will realise by now, I struggle to sit still. And so having a standing desk really helps me have that freedom to just move around. I'm the kind of person that if I do a talk on stage, I'm using the whole space. I'm moving around, walking, enjoying that movement of my body. And I found having a standing desk, and it's only been a relatively new thing, but I found it really freeing to just be able to kind of walk away from a task, get that brain space, and then walk back, like physically sort of separate myself from the laptop for a mile. But more than anything, I found that it means that I sleep better, because I'm actually a little bit more active. I certainly feel better in my mind, because I don't feel trapped by that. Just once you're sat and all your weight's in one place on the chair, it's like physically getting up becomes more of an effort. I typically, when it comes to chairs, have the opposite issue that you have, in that often chairs are too big for me. I mean, these are an exception, but some chairs, I can't, my feet don't touch the floor when I sit in a chair.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we're I wouldn't say I'm like down at the 5th percentile, but I'm certainly in the smaller stage.
Yeah.
But no, I've definitely found it quite freeing to have a standing desk.
And how does, because I remember, like I said, those days, because I actually have a standing desk at home. I should use it more. For like, as I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, maybe I should actually use them. But I remember, like, with standing desks, like, they also created this, like, almost, there's two ways around it. I think there is, I remember looking at it and it was like, oh, why don't, like, if you buy a standing desk, you should buy a mat to stand on so that you get tired less. And it was like all of these different kind of things and stuff. And I'm like, okay, would you say if we need to be more active and if it's seen that we can actually work in the office space without chairs, for example, which is where we spend most of our time in work environments, what would you say, you know, like, what would you say about chairs? What would you imagine the future about chairs? Rama has loads of chairs in there.
I mean,
For example, would you
I would get rid of
throw
all of
away?
them.
Would you? Would you? You know?
I would love to get rid of chairs and have everyone standing. But the thing is, I've noticed is you need to have really good quality shoes
Okay.
because or then your weight is completely on your feet.
Yeah.
And you have to have like good shoes. So I have to, even though I'm at home in my own space, I have to put I have to put shoes on to have to keep that pressure off my feet. The team wouldn't accept it if we got rid of chairs. But the thing that's quite interesting is that obviously from a work perspective, the more comfortable you can make someone, the more likely they are going to stay sat in that chair. They're going to stay sat in front of that computer and they're going to stay working.
Yeah.
So you want to create a chair that's like as comfortable as possible, but actually from a kind of human needs and human movement and body perspective, we should be getting up and moving around, and that's much healthier for us. And so you've got these two things that are completely conflicting, and that we're trying to say that a chair is like more ergonomic, more comfortable, you can sit down for longer. But actually, we did a project a while back which was to look at a sort of a seating solution for the desk, to sit in front of a desk, but it was deliberately designed to be kind of uncomfortable. It didn't have a back, basically.
Oh, wow.
So there's no backrest. So you, after a while, you're like, oh god, I need to move around. And then but it had an opportunity to kneel, to sit cross-legged, to sit like with your legs down like a bench or a stool. And by bringing those opportunities into that experience, you encouraged movement without moving away from the desk. So that was kind of an interesting project.
Do those things, are they sustainable? Is it us that we've trained ourselves so much over the essential of time, sitting in school, sitting in nursery, sitting in that now our bodies can't exist without that? I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
If you look at it the other way around, in that if you go to, say we go to China or Japan, and you're expected to sit on the floor to eat a dinner, you watch people from the West sitting in those situations. I mean, myself included. We can't sit on the floor for like more than 10 minutes without being in pain. And so, and yet the people who are used to it are fine with it. And so it's definitely that we've trained our bodies to sit and be in a certain way for long periods of time, and we don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah.
So I think you can firstly like untrain yourself, but I don't think it's not doing ourselves any harm because we've just grown to adapt like that. But whether it in the long term, and we have an issue in that people are very sedentary. That doesn't help with digestion. It doesn't help with keeping their heart healthy. It doesn't help with like reducing weight gain. All these other things. So there's a lot to be said. Even if you're not in pain, your body isn't actually doing its natural thing.
Yeah, and I guess then, as we've talked about health, what also about materials? I guess different chairs have, because we're talking about the purpose-built chair, and I guess plastic.
I mean, you're interesting you bring up materials. The thing that's really fascinates me about a chair from a design perspective is that it feels like it's like a rite of passage that designers have to design a chair. I look at every, even design agency, designer, going back to even architects in the past, everybody wanted to like, it's like the ultimate designer flex to like design a chair. It's the one thing I don't actually have any kind of desire to design. But that being said, if someone wants us to design a chair, more than welcome to. But yeah, it's interesting that it's become the sort of canvas for a designer's expression.
Yeah.
And there seems to be so many ways in which you can literally like skin a chair. And realistically, it's just got to have like 3 or 4 points of contact on the ground and a bit you can sit on, that bit you can put your back on. And yeah, there is a huge amount of creative freedom there with regards to material design. But then there's also so much terrible crap that gets created with that mindset.
You know, but I guess with chairs, they're obviously one of the few products, mundane products that are most likely, depending on how much money you spend for, they're built for a long time. There's a desire to use them over a very long period of time, I guess. You know, so that lifestyle value of a chair is, you know, most times chairs should provide their value in things, because I think I'm interested in that. I really thought about it, like, you know, we've talked a lot in our previous, you know, episodes in last season sometimes about waste and what happens when, you know, something is at the end of its lifetime value. And when I think of chairs, I'm like, what actually happens to chairs? And then no longer
they go to the chair grave.
Yeah, is there like a chair grave or something, or the chair furnace, chair hell?
There's quite a lot of material in the chair. It's also very awkward to transport because, you know, if you think about putting a chair in a box, how much air is there? So obviously you get chairs that come apart, and you can assemble them and disassemble them, but then it's not something that you do on a regular. It's an interesting one, and I think people are really easy and quick to sort of buy chairs. The thing that changes, the thing that definitely influences people getting rid of chairs is fashion, is trend, interior design.
Yeah.
You may want to buy, especially with interiors. But do you have a favorite chair?
Well, I haven't really been somebody who's like spent crazy cash on the chair. I feel like you know, I have a orange 1.5 armchair, marmalade armchair in my house from Snug Sofa.
Nice.
Which is relatively okay. It's quite a very low chair, you know. But in terms of, like I said, with chairs, I haven't found like comfort. But that's obviously because I ain't built like the normal human being. So there's obviously that caveat in place, which also always thinks in my mind of when a designer designs a chair, is there a how do they make a decision to basically go, okay, we've got a chair and this is the default size we're going for. Because obviously with chairs, one of the hardest things compared to a lot of things, you know, they're obviously very purpose built, very rigid. Some chairs can't expand. Obviously, we're not talking about sofas and couches where you can build modular stuff, but most of the times, once you take the parts and you put a chair together, there's not really much you can necessarily do. So, I guess for me, when I think of chairs, in terms of my own experience, it's like because that's what I was trying to research and trying to see. It's like, what is the future of chairs? And I remember seeing someone saying the future of chairs would be more personalized. You know, and I don't know if that's more about the manufacturing process where somebody's maybe you could do it now, but maybe at mass production, you know, how do you mass produce? Obviously, for mass production purposes, we've got chairs that all have very similar specifications and they get rolled out. And then for something like me, was a custom build, that's a very unique case, and that's only a very unique place or unique stuff. But what happens? Can you do custom builds at mass scale? Is that the future to allow people to have different challenges, all of this stuff where they have a little bit more comfort for, you know, that? Yeah.
That's an interesting thought. It's I've never really thought about the future of the chair, but certainly, I mean, the way that at the moment chairs are made, and you get data like anthropometric data that gives you averages of human dimensions. So whether that
Yeah.
be kind of leg height, um, and then yeah, you can sort of find a medium that middle ground that suits as many people as possible. There's definitely a need for larger chairs. I mean, if you look at like airlines that are doing like larger seats, then yeah, you're getting sort of like larger and larger chairs. But it's that freedom to kind of personalize, as you
Yeah.
say, that everyone's different.
And I guess that it changes the way of manufacturing, because I can imagine that chairs are quite similar to like phones, where like I don't know, like the parts are very standardized. I might be wrong. Actually, not really, because there's much diversity in chairs, but like that whole, how do you have custom built experiences at scale? And does that manufacturing process have to change? Is that, like that particular part? 'Cause I feel like when we say the future of the chair, it's like the future of the chair will be the chair will probably always exist. Maybe our habits might differ. So most of us might, embrace standing desk, which obviously was always seen as a thing that comes from more of the tech creative industries, where it's like, oh, I'm active. I got a treadmill in my chair. Why? Why I work, and it's like
Oh my gosh.
Flexi Spot. I think offers you like a standing desk, thank you, with like a treadmill that you can do. I almost thought about buying it once. Like buy the treadmill and like literally do
No
it.
way.
I get my 10,000 steps in and stuff.
It's a concern, like, I guess, with people working from home. You have the ability to just roll out of bed, go straight in, sit down, start work earlier, finish work later, have a little bit of like free time during the day to just like chill. But most of that might be just picking up a PlayStation controller and playing a bit of PlayStation, but you're still sat in the same chair.
Yeah.
Still maybe watching some videos on YouTube or whatever, still sat in the same chair. So the length of time that you're sat in that chair is only going to extend. When I'm in the office, people are in the office, you might move between breakout space, go to a meeting room, sit at a desk, come like go get a cup of tea. There's a little bit more movement.
Yeah.
And so it'd be interesting to see how the role of the chair changes, and if it changes, and if we do shift away from using the chair as we know it, because the impact that that's having of like being like working from home. But yeah, I guess we'd obviously love to hear other people's thoughts. Now we're available on more platforms. You can comment hopefully, and let us know what you think is going to be the future of the chair.
And welcome. Thank you for watching Rethinking the Mundane with Jo and